Scoopo Moogles, it's the Schwans27 here, and it's time for yet another recap of the Flashback Battle Royale event. This time, our runners had a blast from the very far past with the Kefka Grand Prix Finals, one of the OG events in the community. Let's see what our seeds threw at our runners this time around, as the main heat had Slot as Locke's command, with a Morph Realm and Umaro to kick things off. With a 500,000 GP starting purse, we were looking for great things in the 100% random shops, and we found experience eggs in the World of Balance, South Figaro Relic Shop, ice rods in the weapon shop there. Offerings and Genji gloves could be had in World of Balance the Masa, along with a nerfed Atma weapon. World of Ruin Albrook had Super Balls, Valiant Knives, Minervas, Behemoth Suits, earrings, and hero rings, so there were a few places that you could go to blow all of your cash. Meanwhile, doing some checks was an easy choice of Genji glove, yay, or Genji armor, meh, in the Narsh weapon shop, and a 3-battle curse shield teaching Ultima for 80 MP was a must-have. The Tizen Thief was selling Torado for under 20k in both worlds, so that was our very first progression. Unfortunately, this also meant that enemies were at level 22-ish, giving the 3x scaling and the plus 10 levels across the board. However, the paltry amount of battles so uncursed shield meant just taking off the Moogle Charm and yeeting rods at the enemies. Thankfully, the boss at the end of our grind spot in South Figaro Cave was Narappa, which gave us Go-Go and a chance to easily swap down to the one party member to run through the Zone Eater check, where we found a Ragnarok sword and a chest and the Shiva Esper at the end. Esper Mountain had a Moogle roaming around with the health command, but the boss being Tritok meant that we could only use Super Balls and slots to kill it if we didn't have a Valiant Knife user. Heading up to Lone Wolf, we saw Terra peeking out of Umaro's cave as the reward, while the choice was between a Ragnarok, the Esper, and an Illumina, and of course we wanted both of them, so eventually we had to head back to the Moogle Mines when doing the World of Ruin Narsh loop. The Kefka at Narsh spot was Ifrit, which was fine for the ice rods that some of our runners purchased, giving out the Palador Esper, and at Moogle Defense, Odin was the reward, and the Atma weapon for the boss meant that we could learn Ultima pretty early on. Hopping over to the other world, we were ready to take on our first unscaled dragon of the seed, and it was the Blue Dragon, who was an issue with AoE water spells, but with a double sword swinger and Super Balls, it eventually went down for a Pearl Lance. Ghost Train guarded Calmness Protection with Golem, and Welk was ironically the boss prior to getting Capture Terra, who would sub in for Go-Go. Seesawing back into the World of Balance Narsh for the last of the checks in the area had Bahamut at the Welk Gate. The Sealed Gate Cave was a quick run-through if you didn't grab any of the chests, with our 7th character, Shadow, at the end. His free Gao Manor check yielded Phoenix, but his other single-part check, Veldt Cave, showed an NPC sprite waiting to be rescued, and sorry, Merchant, we're gonna let the big bad wolf eat ya. Flying east landed us in Owzer's Mansion, where a soldier sprite was painting with Shote. Having one more Esper for Go mode, but still needing 4 dragons, led Gar to head into the Phoenix Cave, where there's actually another Illumina in a chest, as well as a double Pearl Lance from the White Dragon before a dead check Force Armor as the reward. Peaking Mobilas had Samurai Cyan holding the little kids hostage, and since we didn't need another character, we again pivoted to Zozo Tower that gave Carbuncle for our first 2 requirements. Terra had yet another character at the Leet River with Edgar, but his 3 checks were all items, so that path was a bust aside from the dragon in the ancient castle. Mount Zozo was also a dead check, however you did get a dragon with it. Opera House was the red dragon who had a flame shield, how appropriate. The ice dragon on the left path for Kefka's Tower had a behemoth suit, with the dirt dragon on the other side dropping a red cap, and we finally unlocked the Kefka fight. First, though, it was Ultras 2 and then another Barbie Marshall fight at the Guardian spot, followed by Cranes at the top of that lane, dropping quad 9s from an iron ball on top of Locke's face. That's what happens when the bosses are level 66 after all. Getting through that fight was Rhysopus and the Piranhas on the left, which could have been painful had any of them gotten off the bite attack, and finally SR Behemoth, which seemed to give the most trouble to our runners with very powerful magic attacks. Access to instant death via Doom, Mute in some cases, and Siren from the auction house had you went there for tier 2, and Golem on the required path with a ton of levels on either a Valiant Knife offering lock or Genji Glove Illuminas on Terra, with Ultima Casting Realm and maybe Mog or Go-Go or that Ragnarok that we found, made a very quick and easy Kefka fight for Gar, coming in first place with a time of 1:14:51. Meanwhile, in Memory Lane, it was the same 2 commands, but this time Morph on Lock and Slot on Setzer, with a new one, Control for Shadow. It was World of Ruin South Figaro that had the experience eggs for sale in this one, along with both Illumina's and Ragnarok's in the weapon shop, with World of Ruin Nikea having the goods of a Valiant Knife, Ice, and Thunder Rods in the weapon shop, with an Ice Shield in the armor shop. If you were looting, returners had an Illumina and an offering showcasing the 100% random chests. As far as free checks went, we had access to 3, with the Narsh weapon shop having a choice of Shiva or Genji armor. The Kolonjin Inn had a Force shield and Gao Manor a Genji shield, with the unfortunate count of the Curse shield being 30 in this one. The Tizen Thief was selling a snow muffler for a cool 15,000 GP in the World of Balance. After trekking all across the World of Balance looking for some grind fights, Hefe eventually found some to get his characters up to a decent enough level to brave the journey up to the floating continent where Health Realm was laying on the ground once you got past the 5 required fights. Ifrit with X-Zone was the reward in the middle spot, and yet another Esper Crusader was at the end. Flipping over to the World of Ruin, it was at this time that Hefe decided his team was strong enough to take down an unscaled dragon with 10 extra levels and hiked up Fnatic's tower to loot some treasure and obliterate the Skull Dragon with Pearl Rods, getting a Minerva out of the deal. A trip up to World of Ruin Narsh was next on the agenda, with a vanilla Ice Dragon dropping another experience egg that we quite frankly didn't need, and Tritok Cliff having just a gem box, so quite a disappointment. However, we did need the dragon for the Kefka unlock. Continuing on, the dragon slaying endeavor was Goldie at the Opera House for an offering, which would have been nice had we not spiked one in returners earlier. With a sufficient level advantage, it was back to other forms of progression, with Odin from South Figaro Cave, a Cat Hood from Esper Mountain, and finally our 5th character, Gao, waiting to be rescued at the Velt Cave. A quick party shuffle and dog pet later led to the Velt check for Madawin and Gao's other check, Serpent Trench, having a Yeti wash up on the dock. A bit unfortunate that we already did the 3 other checks in the World of Ruin. A quick search the skies before hopping into Phoenix Cave was a Force shield as we pivoted back to dragon checks. Inside, we defeated the White Dragon for fixed dice, and Alexander was waiting for us at the end. Running out of options for our next characters, Owzer's Mansion before doing Daryl's Tomb, Umaro's Cave, or the Narsh Battle, but unfortunately, it was only Siren as the reward at the end with the painting. Migrating northwards had an inscription for Cyan, which meant we had our character requirements as well as yet another check with a dragon on the way, so it was a no-brainer to go to Mount Zozo, where the red dragon yielded a Genji glove and Tritok was at the wrong cliff. Doma Siege was Celeste, and that opened up great options to get our last 2 shiny stones. Hefe picked the Magitech Factory first, and unfortunately we went 0 for 2 with a Cat Hood followed by a Valiant Knife. Thus, he decided to get the guaranteed progression from the 3rd spot after a minecart ride full of dinosaurs, a flying gooseneck daddy pants, and Dullahan, but Fenrir was a welcome sight for calmness protection. Heading to the South Figaro prisoner spot was unfortunately only a Genji armor, so the search continued. Umaro's Cave in this seed also had Terra, which allowed us to get to more checks that weren't Doma Dream or Opera House, so Hefe begrudgingly took her into the fold. Finally, the Welk spot had Carbuncle for Kefka unlock after completing 30 checks. Even with the spicy chicken at the Inferno spot and Atma a Doom statue, our incredibly high number of levels from doing so many checks and the purchasable experience eggs made things simple. Until the Martial Ogre fight at the Goddess spot that can make things very nasty very quickly. Thankfully, Illuminas are one of the best defensive weapons in the game, so they were everywhere besides a VK offering to avoid the Zombites. Doom, Siren, Fenrir, and tons of physical offense were no match for Final Kefka, as Hefe took down the best time this week with a 1:40.57. Next week is a more recent events flag set for the remaining 8 contestants in the main heat, Doom's Rage from the Warring Triads. A 2-character start puts a slight spin on the traditional 6-character 9 Esper unlock, and the Kefka Tower skip will be different for every seed with a range of options for overflows on the character, Esper, or check option, so we'll have to see what seed bot cooked up for our runners. As is the case with all of the Warring Triads flag sets, statues are shuffled amongst themselves, and with a scaling of 2.5 times checks for the enemies maxing out at level 50, these will be the most difficult fights in the entire seed, with a split party inside of Kefka's Tower. To go along with the theme of Doom absorbing the Ice Elemental, those are the only main elemental seeds available to you this seed, since Fire, Bolt, Merton, and Ultima are removed from the learnable pool, as well as another nerf to magic with a -10 magic power stat across the board, and a lower than normal MP reward rate. However, in line with the Demon Rage ability, the +20 strength stat is given along with the item rewards from checks being high tier items, along with the Ice Shield and Mega Elixir. Chests and shops are slightly buffed at 35% random, and the equipable item pool is also buffed at 50% random plus original. Thus, this flag set plays very much like a good physical offensive build seed, unless you just so happen to get lucky with a good magic power plus Esper early on a character with a better than average stat. There are also prizes for defeating odd numbers of dragons to get all of the different abilities that Doom has. The first being Auto Reflect, which is nice for the early game, having magical attacks bounce back, but this will hurt for things like healing spells. Defeating 3 dragons gets you Auto Haste, and if you don't find Calmness Protection otherwise, you could slay 5 of them for the Auto Image status. This is also a flag set where we will probably be starting out pretty slow, as is the case with physical damage builds, but the fight command is the quickest animation in the game, so we'll make up for that difference over time. Who will be the final 4 competitors from the MySpace Top 8 this week? We'll have to find out on that recap. I've been the Schwantz27. Until next time.